For an overview of the whole Huey family of aircraft, see Bell Huey family. The following is an extensive catalogue of the variants and specific unique elements of each variant and/or design stage of the UH-1 Iroquois transport helicopter, XH-40 and YH-40. The first Bell helicopter to use a turbine engine was a modified Model 47, which had its initial flight in October 1954. The U.S. Army began a competition for a new helicopter for general utility and medical casualty evacuation in 1955. In June 1955, Bell Helicopter was awarded a contract to develop the next-generation turbine-powered utility helicopter for the U.S. Army. The resulting Bell Model 204 was designated XH-40 by the U.S. military and first flew on the 22nd of October 1956. Two more prototypes were built in 1957, and 6 YH-40 pre-production helicopters were delivered in 1958. The YH-40's cabin was lengthened by 12 in, and had more ground clearance compared to the XH-40. Bell believed the YH-40 was ideal for troop transport and cargo carrying as well as the Magivatrol. A view soon adopted by the Army. They found the pre-production aircraft so much better in service than previous piston-powered helicopters. They soon ordered more UH-1. The UH-1A was the first turbine-equipped U.S. helicopter to go into production, and production models first entered service with the 101st Airborne Division at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, the 82nd Airborne Division and the 57th Medical Detachment. Although they were intended for evaluation only, the Army quickly pressed them into operational service, and Hueys with the 57th Medical Detachment arrived in Vietnam in March 1962. The helicopter was originally designated the HU-1, which is where it received its nickname Huey. The official U.S. Army designation Iroquois was almost never used in practice. 14 of the original order of UH-1s were designated as TH-1A, which were used for crew training, and a single aircraft was redesignated XH-1A for grenade launcher testing in 1960. The first UH-1s to arrive in Vietnam after the 57th Medical Detachment were with a new test unit, the U.S. Army's Utility Tactical Transport Company, UTTCO, had 20 Alpha Hueys and deployed to Vietnam in the fall of 1962. These aircraft were used as armed escorts to the existing H-21 Shawnees and H-34 Choctaws troop carriers. In use, the UH-1A proved underpowered with the Lycoming T-53L1 power plants of just 860 shp, and indicated the need for improved follow-on models of the Huey UH-1B. The HU-1B was an improved model that was equipped with the Lycoming T-53L5 engine of 960 shp, revised main rotor blades of 44-foot diameter and 21-inch chord, 13-inch higher rotor mast, and a longer cabin that could accommodate 7 passengers. This version was redesignated UH-1B in 1962. Later production UH-1Bs were equipped with Lycoming T-53L9 and L11 engines of 1,100 shp. Gross weight was 8,500 pounds and the standard empty weight was 4,513 pounds. Army testing of the B model started in November 1960, with first production aircraft arriving in March 1961. A total of 10 Bravo models were delivered to the U.S. Army. First deployment was in November 1963 when 11 were sent to Vietnam to join the Alpha models already in use by UTTCO. 1 and UH-1B was produced for test purposes. Bell certified civil version of the UH-1B incorporating some minor safety improvements such as improved door locks. The aircraft was marketed as the Bell 204B. UH-1C. The UH-1C was specifically developed as a gunship version until the interim attack helicopter. The Bell AH-1G Huey Cobra was available and to correct the deficiencies of the UH-1B when it was used in the armed role. The UH-1C was widely referred to as the Huey Hog in U.S. Army service. The Charlie model was fitted with the 1100 SHP T53L9 or L11 engine to provide the power needed to lift the weapons systems in use or under development at the time. It incorporated the new Bell 540 rotor system with 27-inch chord blades. The increased power led Bell's engineers to design a new tail boom for the C, which incorporated a wider chord fin on a longer boom and larger synchronized elevators. The C also introduced a dual hydraulic control system for redundancy in battle and an improved inlet filter system for the dusty conditions found in Southeast Asia. Fuel was increased to 242 U.S. gallons and gross weight to 9,500 pounds, giving a nominal useful load of 4,673 pounds. Development on the C model had commenced in 1960, with production starting in June 1966. A total of 766 C models were completed, including 5 for the Royal Australian Navy and 5 for Norway. The balance went to the U.S. Army. Many UH-1Cs were later re-engined with the 1400 SHP Lycoming T53L13 power plant. With this engine they were redesignated UH-1 M. UH-1D. The earlier short-body Hueys were a success, especially in the gunship role, but lacked the cabin space to be an effective troop transport. The U.S. Army wanted a version that could carry a crew of 4 and also deliver an infantry section of 8-10 soldiers. Bell's solution was to stretch the UH-1B fuselage by 41 inches and use the extra space to fit 2 sideways-facing seats on either side of the transmission. This brought the total seating capacity to 15, including crew seats. The new Huey was designated UH-1D by the U.S. Army and as the Model 205 by Bell. The enlarged cabin could also accommodate 6 stretchers, double that of the earlier models, making the Delta a good MEDEVAC aircraft. In place of the earlier models' sliding side doors with a single window, larger doors were fitted which had 2 windows, plus a small hinged panel with an optional window, providing access to the cabin. The doors and hinged panels were quickly removable and the Huey could be flown in that configuration. The first UH-1D prototype flew in August 1960. 7 UH-1Ds were delivered and tested at Edwards AFB starting in March 1961. The UH-1D was initially equipped with a 44-feet main rotor and a Lycoming T53L9 engine. Testing revealed that more power was required and so the rotor was lengthened to 48 feet with a chord of 21 inches and the engine was upgraded to the Lycoming T53L11 engine of 1100 SHP. A longer tail boom was designed to accommodate the longer rotor blades. Gross weight was 9,500 pounds. Later production Deltas had the Lycoming T53L13 power plant of 1,400 shp installed and redesignated as hotel models. The first Army unit deliveries of the Delta model were on the 9th of August 1963 when the 11th Air Assault Division at Fort Benning, Georgia received two. This unit was renamed the 1st Cavalry Division and deployed to Vietnam with its Delta Hueys. A total of 2,008 UH-1Ds were delivered to the U.S. Army between 1962 and 1966. The model was widely exported and served with the armed forces of Australia and South Vietnam among others. A grand total of 2,561 UH-1Ds were built, including 352 constructed by Dornier for the West German Armed Forces. The UH-1D was a base rescue, firefighting version for the U.S. Army that had a 50-gallon water and foam spray system that could be discharged via an extendable 16-foot boom, upgrading the UH-1D to the Lycoming T53L13 engine, plus relocating the pitot tube from the nose to the roof resulted in a new model, the UH-1H, which was to become the most produced variant of the Huey family. UH-1E. In 1962 the U.S. Marines held a competition to choose a new assault support helicopter to replace the Cessna 01 and Camano H-43D helicopter. The winner was the UH-1B, which was already then in service with the U.S. Army. The UH-1B was developed into a special model, designated UH-1E, to meet Marine Corps requirements. The major changes included the use of all-aluminum construction for corrosion resistance, special avionics that were compatible with Marine Corps ground frequencies, a rotor brake to stop the rotor quickly on shutdown for shipboard use on a roof-mounted rescue hoist. The UH-1E was first flown on the 7th of October 1963 and deliveries commenced the 21st of February 1964, with 192 aircraft completed. Due to production line realities at Bell, the UH-1E was produced in two different versions, both with the same UH-1E designation. The first 34 built were essentially UH-1B airframes with the Lycoming T53L11 of 1,100 shp. Because Bell was switching Army production to the UH-1C, the UH-1E production line was converted to commonality with the C. This meant the later Echo Hueys were completed with the Charlie-style tail boom, including the larger fin, the 540 rotor system and a gross weight of 8,500 pounds. The Marines used the UH-1E as both a gunship and troop transport. Many were upgraded to the Lycoming T53L13 engine, which produced 1,400 shp, making these Echoes similar to the Army Mike models. At least 126 UH-1S survived the Vietnam service and were still in use more than a decade later. There was a Marine Corps training version of the UH-1E, which was based on the UH-1C variant and was designated TH-1E. 20 were delivered in 1965. UH-1F Bell Helicopters was the winner of the 1963 United States Air Force competition for a support helicopter for use on its missile bases. Bell had proposed the UH-1B for the competition, but the USAF asked Bell to develop a special version of the Bravo, in using the General Electric T-58 turboshaft as a power plant. The USAF already had a large inventory of these engines for its fleet of Sikorsky HH-3 Jolly Green Giant rescue helicopters and wanted to have commonality between the types. This engine was capable of 1,250 horsepower compared to the UH-1B's 1,100 horsepower T53L11. In response, Bell proposed an upgraded version of the UH-1B with the T58 engine installed. The resulting UH-1F had the shorter cabin of the Bravo Huey, but with the longer tail boom, rotor and transmission of the UH-1D. Due to the Huey's configuration, Bell installed the T58 engine backwards compared to the HH3. The Huey's engine is behind the transmission, whereas the HH3's engines are in front of the transmission. Externally, the only visible differences from UH-1B were the engine exhaust, which exited to the right side of the engine, and the longer tail boom. The UH-1F was introduced into the USAF inventory on the 20th of February 1964. The USAF took delivery of 119 with production ending in 1967. Many of the aircraft served in Southeast Asia with the 20th Special Operations Squadron, and some were converted to the armed UH-1P configuration. In Italy, Agusta produced a similar model by re-engineering the 204B with the 1,225 horsepower Rolls-Royce Gnome turboshaft, but later models used T58s. The AB204B was exported to the military of the Netherlands, Sweden, Austria, and Switzerland. It had a rescue hoist located at the right side of the cabin. The last UH-1F was retired from the USAF in the early 1980s when it was replaced by the UH-1N. Many of these aircraft later served as forest firefighting aircraft with various U.S. state governments and agencies. There was a TH-1F trainer also built for the USAF. The first TH-1F was flown in January 1967, and deliveries ran from April to July of that year, with 27 completed. Examples of this variant were operated by the USAF Instrument Flight Center. UH-1H. The UH-1H was an improved UH-1D, with the Lycoming T53L13 engine of 1,400 shp installed, plus the pitot tube relocated from the nose to the roof, to reduce ground damage to it. Hotel models were created by upgrading Deltas with the more powerful engine. The first UH-1H flew in 1966, with deliveries of production models starting in September 1967. The Hotel model Huey was produced in larger numbers than any other model, with 4,850 delivered to the U.S. Army alone. The Hotel model was widely exported and was also built under license in Germany, Italy, Japan, and Taiwan. 10 were sold to Canada for use under the designation CUH-1H, with the first one was delivered on the 6th of March 1968. These were evaluated by the Canadian Forces and found unsuitable for Canadian tactical use, which resulted in the Canadian government sponsoring the development of the twin-engined version of the Hotel, the UH-1 and Twin Huey. The 10 CUH-1Hs were re-equipped for search and rescue use, redesignated CH-118, and served until 1995. Bell developed a certified version of the UH-1H for the civil market. The aircraft incorporated minor changes for safety, such as dual sliding door locks and a baggage compartment in the tail boom. It was marketed by Bell as the Model 205A and later the improved 205A1. The Hotel Model Huey was also the basis for a number of sub-variants. HH-1H was a UH-1H equipped for base rescue duties. 30 were delivered to the USAF between 1970 to 73. UH-1H was a UH-1H modified under Project Quick Fix in 1976 and used as communications jamming aircraft with the U.S. Army. 22 aircraft were modified to this configuration beginning in 1976. Initial aircraft were fielded to the 82nd Airborne Division and the 2nd Armored Division. The 82nd fielded the type during the invasion of Grenada in 1983. UH-1J, an improved Japanese version of the UH-1H built under license in Japan by Fuji Heavy Industries. It was locally designated as the UH-1J. UH-1X was an improved UH-1H communications jammer and DF aircraft. UH-1 was a UH-1H equipped with retractable skid gear and an APS-94 radar boom mounted on the belly. UH-1V was a MEDEVAC version of the Hotel, with upgraded avionics. TH-1H modified UH-1Hs for use as basic helicopter flight trainers by the USAF. UH-1J. Some UH-1Hs built by Fuji in Japan were improved and given the local designation of UH-1J, although this was not used in the U.S. designation series. UH-1K. Bell was awarded a contract by the U.S. Navy in December 1968 for a new search and rescue helicopter. The aircraft was designated the UH-1K and was basically a UH-1E with different avionics and the Lycoming T-53L13 power plant of 1,400 shp. Deliveries of the Kilo Huey started in May 1970 and by November of that year 3 had been sent to Vietnam to serve with the U.S. Navy Squadron Ha-3, and later with the Ha-4 Red Wolves and the Ha-5 Blue Hawks. A total of 27 HH-1 kilosecond were produced. UH-1L, with deliveries of the UH-1E underway to the U.S. Marines. The U.S. Navy tested a few and found that the type would suit the uses as a utility helicopter. On the 16th of May 1968, the U.S. Navy ordered 8 aircraft under the designation UH-1L. The Lima Huey was basically a UH-1E of the later production type based on the Army's UH-1C, equipped with a rescue hoist and intake particle screen. The Ls were delivered without the armor or armament installed and were equipped with the Lycoming T-53L13 power plant of 1,400 shp. The first 4 Limas were delivered in November 1969 and sent to Vietnam to equip the U.S. Navy Ha-3 detachment assigned to Operation Sealords. In Vietnam, the aircraft were modified with weapons and armor and were fitted to carry 500 pounds bombs and 500 pounds fuel-air explosive munitions. There was a TH-1L version of the UH-1L for the Navy to replace the H-34 and the borrowed Army UH-1Ds used in the training role, including for pilot aircraft carrier qualification training. 45 TH-1Ls were delivered starting in November 1969. UH-1M. The Mike model Huey was a conversion of the existing UH-1C by re-engineering it with the 1,400 shp Lycoming T-53L13 power plant used in the UH-1H. This provided more power to the C model for its role as a gunship and also provided engine commonality between the attack and transport helicopters in use in Vietnam at the time. UH-1N. Bell flew the first twin-engined Huey in April 1965, calling it the Model 208. It was powered by a Continental XD67 twin-pack engine module. The Canadian government provided the incentive for Bell to continue development of the twin Huey using Pratt & Whitney Canada PT60 twin-pack engine. The project attracted orders from the Canadian Forces, U.S. Marine Corps, U.S. Navy and USAF, but not the U.S. Army. The new aircraft was designated UH-1 Iroquois in U.S. service and UH-1 Twin Huey in Canadian Forces use. The Canadian designation was later changed to CH-135 Twin Huey. There was an HH-1N version produced for the USAF as a base rescue helicopter and for use by the 20th Special Operations Squadron in the counter-insurgency role using the call sign Green Hornet. Some Marine Corps UH-1Ns were converted to VH-1Ns as VIP transports, including 6 for presidential use. The UH-1N was widely produced and exported to a large number of countries and licensed built by Agusta in Italy. Bell certified civil version as the Model 212 in October 1970. UH-1P. An unknown number of UH-1Fs were modified to UH-1P configuration by the USAF for use by the 20th Special Operations Squadron, the Green Hornets, based in Southeast Asia during the Vietnam War. Official USAF sources state that these aircraft were used for a classified psychological warfare role, but this is incorrect. The Papa Hueys were in fact modified and employed as gunships armed with machine guns and rocket launch. UH-1V. The UH-1V is a version of the UH-1H converted by the U.S. Army Electronics Command for MEDEVAC use. The aircraft have several upgrades, including a radar altimeter, DME, ILS and a rescue hoist. The first aircraft were supplied to the New Hampshire National Guard. EH-1X. The EH-1X was an improved EH-1H that was equipped with the ALQ-151 system and configured for the airborne jamming, radio intercept and DF role. 10 A1Xs were built starting in late 1976 under Project Quick Fix IIA. JUH-1SOTAS. The JUH-1 was a modified UH-1H and an APS-94 radar system mounted in a rotating boom on the belly, where the cargo hook had been. The aircraft's skid landing gear was modified to retract, allowing the radar antennae to rotate while in flight. The JUH-1S also incorporated an autopilot and improved navigation avionics. The radar system was connected by data link to a ground station for analysis of the radar images. At least 4 UH-1Hs were modified to JUH-1S for use by the U.S. Army in Europe and Korea for use as technology demonstrators in the Standoff Target Acquisition System program. They were first deployed in 1975, but by 1986 they had been replaced by the A-60 Black Hawk. UH-1Y. The UH-1Y Venom is an upgraded UH-1N Twin Huey for the U.S. Marines that was first flown on the 18th of November 2006, developed as part of the H-1 upgrade program.